Revenge with Karen. I knew something was off the second my team's notification lit up with all company town hall. Mandatory. Mandatory my ass. It was a digital firing squad. I logged in, camera off, coffee spiked, and the first words out of Devin's smug mouth were, "We're restructuring for innovation, efficiency, and well, let's call it what it is, legacy detox." Legacy detox. This from a man who still wore friendship bracelets and once tried to pay for lunch with crypto. Came the kicker. In reviewing compensation structures, he droned, flipping through a deck none of us could see. Some bonuses were outdated in their rationale. For redundancy reasons, several of these legacy bonuses will be sunset effective immediately. My bonus, sunset. Like it was a damn beach vacation instead of the reason I kept my head down through 12 years of quarterly chaos, and a panic attacks, and more regulatory nightmares than a Walgreens pharmacist. Didn't even have the spine to name names. Just a polite little line item in a pastel pie chart, ops strategy legacy, -1 FTE cost adjustment. I was -1, cute, no email, no warning, just sunset. And in that moment, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't call my husband and scream into the Bluetooth speaker like I did when our water heater exploded. I just sipped my coffee, opened a fresh folder labeled Devin Fallout, and started quietly dragging files in. Also, real quick, while I've got your attention, 93% of y'all listening aren't subscribed. Wild, right? If you're liking this story, toss us a sub and a like. It's free, and it keeps the team caffeinated enough to keep digging up corporate carnage like this. All right, back to the bloodbath. After Devin's virtual axe swinging, second act of his little debutante massacre, walked in wearing all birds and an MBA grin. Will, new senior strategic analyst. Code for cheaper and louder. Devin introduced him like a prize hog at a county fair. Will's gonna lead ops risk realignment. He's got a machine learning background, some phenomenal fintech insights, and frankly, a more modern view of insurance relationships. Insurance relationships. I almost choked on my mug. I'd been on the job for 2 days and was already rewriting our entire coverage structure like it was a group project due at midnight. The man said the phrase, "Let's disrupt the indemnity flow." That's not a thing. That's a Mad Lib assembled by ChatGPT on a 3-day bender. I watched in silence as Will tried to decipher our layered risk system like it was some kind of Sudoku puzzle. The more he poked around, the more obvious it became. Didn't understand jack. I'd spent years building that house of cards with duct tape, institutional knowledge, and 2 back-channel brokers who owed me favors from their Vegas days. 1 clause out of place, 1 missing date, and half our products would be riding naked into market exposure. But Devin didn't care. To him, I was just another relic from his uncle's regime. Never mind that I'd quietly negotiated our umbrella policy extensions. Never mind that I knew which underwriter had a coke problem and which one had a crush on my LinkedIn profile picture. I wasn't innovative. I didn't speak in buzzwords or bring oat milk to meetings. I just made sure we didn't drown, so when they yanked my bonus, I didn't protest. I nodded. I thanked them for the transparency. And then I stopped signing things. That's right. No more approvals, no more initials, no more late-night saves. If they wanted to fly without me, fine. But I wasn't going to be their legal fall guy when the plane nosedived. And let me tell you, nothing makes a narcissistic little tyrant more nervous than quiet compliance. Not rebellion, not gossip, silence. The kind that makes them wonder if the bomb's already ticking, because it was. And the detonator? Yeah, I'd already put it in my filing cabinet, right next to my sunset bonus statement. It started with a whisper, not metaphorical either, an actual whisper from Janice in legal, while we pretended to be comparing coffee creamers in the break room. She leaned in like she was about to confess to a murder, and instead murmured, "Hey, you seen the latest amendments Devin pushed through on the Tier 3 policies?" I blinked. "He's touching Tier 3? She nodded once, like someone about to deliver last rites. Clause 14.3b is gone, and the indemnity net in the SLA matrix. It's like someone ran it through a shredder and taped it back together with a TED Talk transcript. I didn't respond. I just smiled, picked the vanilla oat milk, and went back to my desk like everything was normal. But my pulse was thumping like a raccoon trapped in a dryer. Clause 14.3b was not some decorative footnote. It was our final line of defense, the part that kicked in when layered carriers fell through, ensuring we didn't eat the full cost of a multi-claim event. Losing it was like yanking the airbags out of a school bus because you liked the upholstery better without M. I sat down, opened the internal coverage portal, and entered my admin credentials. One privilege Devin hadn't revoked yet. There it was. 3 termination logs. 3. I scrolled through the partner carrier list. The big boys, our fail-safes, were still there. But the underlayers, ones we built our whole house of risk balancing on, quietly gone. One had non-renewed due to policy modification. Another had exercised opt-out clause due to changes in material risk. The last one just said, lapsed. As of 03/01, I froze, lapsed, as in no longer covering us. As in we were out there selling a high-risk product line with less protection than a wet napkin at a demolition derby. I printed the logs. One copy went into the Devin Fallout folder. One went into my purse. The third, I slipped it into an empty manila envelope and dropped it in the old legal mail slot we kept for redundancy. I knew damn well it hadn't been cleared in months. That was the point. No email trail, no chain of custody, just presence, like a ghost haunting the hallways, waiting for the right seance. I didn't tell Janice. I didn't tell my husband. Hell, I didn't even tell my group chat of bitter ex-colleagues, though I did send a cryptic meme of a house on fire with the caption when the intern rewrites the insurance matrix. Because here's the thing, people like Devin, they're loud. They love control, chaos, spotlight, but they're blind to subtlety. They don't hear the creaks in the floorboards. They don't notice when the quiet ones start filing paperwork like war plans. Devin was busy hosting another one of his disruption huddles that day. Will was already giving presentations about dynamic actuarial repositioning. I listened in with my mic muted, nodding along like a loyal foot soldier. Meanwhile, I was collecting shrapnel. Every carrier termination, every clause he struck, every smug email from Will praising himself for streamlining the contract spaghetti, and every ignored compliance flag that crossed my desk, blinking like a dying light bulb. I created a new subfolder, 14.3b Fallout, slid everything in, dated it, backed it up on an encrypted thumb drive I kept tucked in an old Altoids tin in my desk drawer. The same drawer that still had a sympathy card from the CFO after my dad died. The irony wasn't lost on me. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to warn him. He'd already pulled the pin. All I had to do was make sure the blast radius landed exactly where it belonged. The day Devin compared me to a filing cabinet was the day I knew he was going to set the whole place on fire and think it was visionary. We were in a strategy sync, his words, not mine, with a Zoom grid full of board members. Half listening while sipping overpriced coffee from ergonomic mugs designed by startups that hadn't turned a profit since Obama was in office. Devin had on his idea face, which usually meant something stupid was about to get funded and someone competent was about to get canned. He stood, all proud peacock in a hoodie, clicking through a slide deck titled Reinvesting in Momentum. The man loved alliteration the way raccoons love trash. It was his native diet. We trimmed the fat, he beamed, gesturing to a bar graph with more gradient than data. Sunsetting legacy bonuses, reallocating funds to brand refreshes, talent innovation and thought partnerships. Brand refreshes. We had policies hanging by a thread, and this clown was pitching rebranding like we were a failing podcast. Then he pivoted. Oh, you could feel it coming, eyes scanning the Zoom tiles until they landed square on mine. You know, he chuckled, there's a mindset in older ops models where bonuses just accumulate, like moss or rust. No offense, but if you've been cashing checks on systems no one else can understand, you're not a hero, you're a hoarder. Someone on the board actually laughed, a high, nasal snort. I recognized the voice, Alyssa from Venture West. She once asked me if indemnity meant we give them money or they give us money. I smiled, big, warm, professional, like a wolf being complimented on its teeth. The rest of the meeting blurred. Devin pitched a brand consultant with 14K followers and a dog named Equity, demoed some dashboard that looked like it was made in Canva by a man on mushrooms. The board nodded. No one mentioned coverage. No one asked why risk ops now reported to a junior marketer with a TikTok habit. I logged off, walked to my fridge, and poured a glass of Pinot Grigio like it was cough syrup for the soul. Then I sat down and opened a file I hadn't touched since my second miscarriage, the draft of my resignation letter. I updated the date, added a paragraph. Effective immediately, I declined custodial responsibility for any documentation or policy language not personally reviewed by me in full. I stared at it, hovered over the send button. Didn't click, because the thing about fire, you don't run from it when you know exactly where the gas lines are. He thought he was winning. He really did. Sitting there on Zoom, playing Startup Sorcerer, conjuring buzzwords while gutting our structural core. Didn't even ask what clauses he'd removed. Didn't even see the terminations happening under his own dashboard. But I saw. I watched as the scaffolding collapsed in slow motion, one carrier at a time, one silent lurch closer to the moment when someone important, would ask the question he couldn't answer. And when they did, it wouldn't be my name on the custodial line. That night, before I went to bed, I did one last thing. I logged into our policy backend and exported the full amendment history, PDF format, triple timestamped, filed to an encrypted cloud folder titled Insurance Ghost Notes. Then I unplugged. Literally. Took my laptop, shut it down, slid it into the drawer next to my resignation draft, and poured one more glass, not in defeat, in anticipation. The Series E deck landed in my inbox at 10:13 p.m. on a Thursday, sandwiched between a spammy employee wellness bingo invite and a company-wide poll about what fruit we most identified with. For the record, I picked lemon. Tart, underrated, and mostly used to clean up other people's messes. The subject line of the email was classic Will. Investor materials final V12 actual final. For real this time. Attached was a glossy PDF with so many gradients it looked like a Lisa Frank folder threw up on a Gartner report. I wasn't supposed to review it. Not officially. I was CC'd as a courtesy, their word, not mine, because Sarah's always been looped into coverage language approvals. Which is funny, because they'd just spent the last month pretending I didn't exist while erasing the safety nets I'd spent a decade weaving together. I clicked open the deck anyway, more out of morbid curiosity than duty. I'd already removed my name from every sign-off line they stuck me on post-Devin. They wanted plausible deniability. Fine. I'd give them full implausibility. Slide 14 stopped me cold. There it was. A big, shiny bullet point in bold Arial. All high-risk product lines are fully covered under active layered carrier policies as of Q1. My blood turned to ice. That sentence wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. It was a lie, dressed up in investor lingerie, and paraded in front of a room full of people about to wire us $270 million. The coverage wasn't active. 3 carriers had bailed. The layered net was gone. I sat there staring at that slide like it was a loaded gun aimed directly at my forehead. Then I hit reply all. No emotion, no bold font, just a single sentence. Please remove my name from this presentation and any associated documentation. I will not be listed as records custodian for materials containing unverifiable coverage statements. I didn't CC Devin. I didn't need to. Legal saw it. They replied within minutes, privately, asking for clarification. I sent them the file, my folder of lapse notices, the amendment logs, the timeline of carrier exits. No commentary, no snark, just cold receipts. Janice from legal pinged me on Slack 2 minutes later, we need to flag this. I just typed back, already did, balls in your court. She read it. Never responded. An hour later, I saw the email chain forward again, this time with Devin's name attached. Reply was pure ego on display. We've had no material coverage interruptions. This is ops overreacting to standard renewals. Deck approved as is. Standard renewals? You don't standard renewal yourself out of 3 carriers. That's not a hiccup. That's a collapse, but Devin didn't care. He'd already booked the call. Already scheduled the investor dog and pony show. To him, this was all just paperwork, technicalities in the way of his next headline. What he didn't realize, he'd just put his initials on a lie. And I had a time-stamped record that said I wouldn't stand next to it when it blew up. My name, no longer in the deck. But his, right there on slide 1, beneath the title, CEO message, trust, transparency, and transformation. Trust, sure. Let's see how that works out. There's a corner of the server no one touches. I named it Legacy Ops Archive 2013 to current back, when I still believed folders needed clean titles. It lives 3 layers deep inside our old SharePoint maze, nested between dead hyperlinks and onboarding documents for interns who aged out of our insurance bracket. Devin's team never found it. Of course they didn't. They were too busy rebuilding our knowledge base in Notion like it was Pinterest for corporate buzzwords. Everything about them screamed performative productivity, Slack emojis, team GIFs, daily stand-up vibes. but not one of them ever asked where the original carrier agreements were stored. And that's where the ghosts lived. Contracts written by brokers who were now dead or retired. Side letters negotiated at 2 a.m. over speakerphone with partners in Zurich. Email chains documenting each amendment, every clause, every painful little carve-out that protected our asses when claims spiked in Q4. Layered protections. Synchronized expirations. Dependencies coded in blood. And then, at the very bottom, 3 unread PDFs marked with red flags. Non-renewal confirmation Tier 2 lapse notice Q1 product line termination of umbrella final notice dated. Stamped. Ignored. I opened them. Reviewed each line. My stomach dropped again, even though I already knew what I'd find. Each carrier had exited under Devin's simplified terms. Each lapse had occurred on his watch. And each warning had my name copied at the bottom, even though I hadn't touched the policies since they cut me loose. That was the problem with legacy systems. Everyone forgets the bones until they start cracking. So I opened a secure Proton mail tab, attached the entire folder, forwarded it to my personal counsel with a subject line that simply read, "If this implodes, use this first." Then I uploaded a duplicate, unchanged, to the internal company archive. Read-only, timestamped, tagged under pre-series e-coverage files. Nothing dramatic, no fireworks, no flags, just presence, just existence. That's all you need sometimes. A quiet little shadow with a date, a name, and an unbroken audit trail. 2 hours later, Devin emailed me. Subject line, appreciation. His message was short. The kind of short that reeks of sarcasm dressed as civility. "Sarah, just wanted to say thanks for being so graceful about the transition. Will's been really stepping up, and I appreciate you not making this harder than it needs to be. Some folks struggle with change, but you've kept it classy. Sincerely, Devin." I stared at the screen, sipping my black coffee like it was communion. I typed, always happy to let documentation speak for itself, and clicked send. That was it. The moment the safety clicked off. The moment I knew that I didn't need to fight him publicly. Didn't need to argue or posture or try to save him from himself. He'd already strapped dynamite to the foundation and started dancing with matches. All I had to do was wait. Wait for the right voice in the right room to ask the right question. And when they did, I'd have every page, every policy, every lapse, signed, sealed, and digitally archived under the very folder Devin never even noticed existed. The announcement came with a subject line that might as well have read "Hope you packed your parachute." Series E Investment Review Final Presentation to Lead Investors. Confidential, no intro, no warm-up, just a calendar invite dropped like a hand grenade. Friday, 9:00 a.m. Zoom. Stakeholders, Devin, Will. 2 people from brand strategy who still thought synergy was a personality trait, and the board liaison who once tried to expense a hot tub under client wellness. And me, I wasn't on it. No optional for Sarah. No FYI looped in. Just gone. Cleaned from the chain like I never existed. Not that I was surprised. Hadn't been invited to a single strategy call since Devin got his CEO nameplate laser-etched on that reclaimed wood desk he imported for $7K. He'd officially transitioned me from legacy knowledge source to haunting presence no one wants to talk about. But ghosts have eyes too, and one of them, Frank Lister, hadn't forgotten me. Frank was a senior investor. Quiet. Sharp. The kind of guy who wore unbranded watches and remembered everything. Once asked about a clause I wrote in 2017 that capped aggregate exposure for digital product recalls. No one else on the board even knew it existed. Frank didn't do fluff. Frank did risk, and Frank noticed something in the deck, buried in the appendix custodial sign-offs. Compliance overview, records at a station. No Sarah A. No initials. Just a bland little checkbox next to Will's name with a digital signature dated 2 days prior. That's when it happened. Frank sent a reply, not just to Devin, not just to Will, but to everyone on the distro. One quick clarification before Friday. Can we confirm that Sarah A. is aware of and has reviewed all current policy statuses noted in this presentation? She was the listed custodian on previous rounds. No exclamation mark, no fluff. Just that scalpel-precise, bloodless question. The kind of question that makes people sweat in expensive suits. Replied within 22 minutes. Absolutely. Sarah's fully looped in. Coverage status is current across all product lines. Happy to confirm. And that's when someone, I still don't know who, forwarded the thread to me. No message, no FYI, just the cold relay of an unfolding lie. I read it once, then again slower. And then I just sat there, letting the full weight settle. Will had just put his name, his shiny MBA name, on a confirmation that was factually false, operationally negligent, and provably contradicted by half a dozen lapse notices sitting in my encrypted ghost folder. I didn't reply to the thread, didn't reply to the person who sent it. I just stared at my screen like it was a countdown clock. They had 48 hours until they got on a $270 million call and pitched a coverage structure that no longer existed, with a sign-off from someone who thought insurance was just legal vibes. And me, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. I was just ready. Because when that moment came, when the questions started flying and the documents opened and the room got ice-cold quiet, they'd know. They'd know I hadn't vanished. I had just stepped out of the blast radius. The call started like every other overpriced dog and pony show I'd been forced to sit through over the years, slick, manicured, and oozing with the kind of artificial charm that makes your skin crawl if you've ever had to clean up the mess afterward. Devin opened the floor, grinning like a man who thought he'd already won. We're excited to walk you through how we've streamlined operations, enhanced agility, positioned ourselves for hypergrowth. This round of funding is not just capital, it's momentum. He actually said hypergrowth. I nearly choked on my oatmeal. I wasn't on the Zoom grid, not officially. But thanks to a shared calendar link someone forgot to revoke, I'd slipped in on a muted screen in an unused breakout room, watching from the shadows like a ghost with a grudge and perfect Wi-Fi. Devin looked polished, rehearsed, and utterly convinced of his own genius. Sat beside him, flipping through slides like a game show assistant, offering up nods and buzzwords whenever Devin paused to sip from his reusable water bottle branded with our new soulless company logo. The investors were all present. Dozens of tiny, silent tiles. Some faces I knew, some I didn't. But one stood out, Frank Lister, calm, stone-faced, clicking his pen like a heartbeat. The call rolled along. Cue and a started. Then came the moment. Frank unmuted, just like that. No raise hand, no preamble. Before we proceed to cap table discussion, he said, tone neutral as a morgue slab, I'd like to pause on slide 14, coverage and risk management. Devin blinked. Of course, he said with a chuckle that didn't reach his eyes. Will, could you bring that up? Will nodded too fast. He clicked. The slide froze for a second, too long, then it loaded, and the room went quiet. Dead quiet. There was no coverage summary. No colorful bullet points. No clever language about layered risk or renewal negotiations. Just a single auto-filled text field, coverage lapsed 03/01, that's it. 12-point Arial, 3 words, and silence so loud it was like someone had unplugged reality. Devin blinked, smiled, frowned, tried to spin. I think, we may be looking at an outdated draft here. Will started stammering, scrolling, clicking through tabs like maybe the right version was hiding behind the weather widget. Frank didn't move. Coverage lapsed. He repeated, not angry, not shocked. Just confirming. Devin laughed. No, this is a miscommunication. The core coverage is still in place. I assure you, Sarah had reviewed all policy structures, and that's when Frank cut him off. Is Sarah on this call? Pause. Longer now. Devin opened his mouth, closed it, looked around like he'd just realized the lifeguard was missing at the deep end. Will muttered something about double-checking decks and clarifying after the call. Someone coughed. It echoed through the grid. That single, dry cough that humans sound in a room full of digital ghosts might as well have been a gunshot. I leaned back in my chair. No smile, no triumph, just stillness. Because I wasn't on that call, but my name was, or rather wasn't, not on the sign-off, not on the deck, not anywhere near the lie they'd tried to sell to a room full of people holding 270 million reasons to care. I let the moment play out. Watched Devin blink faster. Watched Will melt into his laptop. Watched Frank write something down on a pad with a pen that never left his hand. I didn't need to speak. The document had already done it for me. Coverage lapsed 03/01, the rest was just gravity doing its job. Call ended like someone pulled the plug out mid-sentence. One moment, Devin was spinning some last-ditch word salad about renewal in progress, and the next, click. Zoom disconnected. Meeting over. No follow-up. No next steps. Just static silence and the digital smell of burnt hubris. 10 minutes later, my work phone lit up. Incoming call, legal direct line. I let it ring twice. Then picked up, slow and steady. Hi, this is Sarah. Janice's voice came through on the other end, strained and sharp like a piano wire about to snap. No pleasantries. No warm-up. We need the folder, not a folder. The folder. I already knew which one she meant. I assume you're calling with General Counsel's blessing? Yes. And indemnity coverage for internal disclosure, a beat. Confirmed. I opened my encrypted drive. Clicked once. Dragged insurance ghost archive final into a secure email. Attached a short note, per request. Coverage lapse documentation. Includes policy terminations, correspondence, and internal override chain. Click send. Then sat back and waited for the rest of the house to collapse. 30 minutes later, Frank Lister had the file. I don't know who sent it to him. Doesn't matter. What matters is that when he opened it, time-stamped, organized, complete, it spoke louder than any boardroom tantrum ever could. At the top, a memo from me, dated exactly 21 days prior. Simple language, no drama. Coverage gaps identified in Tier 2 and umbrella layers. Legal notified. No confirmation of renewal received. I decline custodial role for any investor material until issues are addressed. Below it, the thread from legal flagging the risk. And below that, Devin's email. Short, arrogant, final. Sarah's concerns are noted but overblown, proceeding with standard language. Deck is approved. It's like watching a man sign his own autopsy report. Frank didn't raise his voice, didn't flinch. He looked up from the document slowly, eyes dark and unreadable, and fixed them on Devin like a surgeon staring down a malignant tumor. You knew, he said, calm, cold, not a question, a statement of fact. Devin opened his mouth, probably to lie, spin, or blame ops miscommunication. Didn't matter. Frank leaned in, voice lower now. You gambled. With our cash, with their policies, with your signature. No one moved. Will looked like he was trying to disappear into his own chair. Someone from compliance slid their laptop shut like they were trying not to be visible on security footage. Devin just stood there, blinking like a deer that finally realized the headlights weren't slowing down. I wasn't in that room, but I didn't need to be. My memo was. My receipts were, and Frank had read every damn word. He turned to legal. Call an emergency session. Today. Then he looked back at Devin, eyes narrowing. We'll decide what to report to the board. After that, we'll see what the regulators think. And just like that, the curtain dropped. Not with yelling, not with handcuffs, but with a file folder, a timestamp, and a 6-word sentence that ended the whole show. You knew, you gambled, and the next act wasn't going to have him in it. By noon, Devin was gone. No goodbye, no exit memo, no last ego-drunk Slack message about taking time to recharge. Just a quiet tap on the glass from HR, a whispered request to step outside, and a faint rustle of his overpriced sneakers on the carpet. He never came back in, not to the call, not to the office, not even to the Slack channel where he'd once pinned a meme of a guillotine labeled legacy roles. Fitting. Within the hour, my inbox pinged with a calendar invite. Emergency board session, closed council. No subject line fluff. No emojis. Just a block of time and a location. Conference room 5A. That's the big one, the one they use when things are burning down fast enough to melt the paint off the walls. I walked in 10 minutes early. They were already waiting. Frank Lister sat at the head of the table, arms folded. The general counsel was beside him, looking like she hadn't blinked since the memo landed in her inbox. Few board members nodded at me like they'd just recognized the airbag they ignored for years until the crash. No small talk, no fake smiles. Just Frank's voice, quiet and direct. We need you to step in. I raised an eyebrow. Acting advisory to legal and compliance, he clarified. Until we sort through the fallout and find someone permanent. I leaned back, not surprised, not flattered, prepared. But I wasn't going to let them smooth this over like nothing happened. Only under full indemnity, I said, and only if no one refers to me as non-essential again. The silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. Then Frank nodded once, agreed. The general counsel followed up. We'll draw it up by end of day. I stood, nodded, and walked out without another word. I didn't need applause. I didn't need validation. I had the truth, the timing, the digital trail so clean it sparkled. When I got back to my desk, the same one they hadn't reassigned, despite quietly trying to erase me, I booted up my laptop and watched as the employee directory refreshed. One name flashed red, Devin K. inactive. Just like that. Years of posturing, strategy decks, and hot air disruption slogans, extinguished by one bulletproof folder, one timestamp memo, and a single sentence that made the walls collapse. I poured myself a cup of Earl Grey, sat down, sipped, didn't celebrate, didn't gloat. I just let the silence settle. On screen, Devin's last email sat open. Subject, appreciation. I archived it without reading, because this wasn't revenge. It wasn't drama. It was clarity, cold and complete. A quiet reckoning delivered by the woman he thought was just ops. Turns out, ops had teeth and receipts. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.